Smell that? It's time to cook, baby. All right, here we go. Matt Thompson, world famous YouTuber. And today I'm coming with what honestly is my magnum opus. I have dedicated my life to understanding this topic. Not my life, but a lot of my time. So we are going to be talking today about critical dating theory. Now, thank you for those of you who last video were providing feedback on my handwriting and how messy it was. I have a lot of strengths in life, and writing is not one of those strengths. But today, I'm going to write as neatly as I can because this video matters. I intend to save the world with this video. Yeah, the world of dating. And so we're talking about critical dating theory today. Now, that's as neat as we're gonna get. So if you don't like that, pull out your own paper and pen and start taking your own notes, and then you can tuck that away in your nightstand. You can review these notes before bed, and then you'll be much better off for it. So what are we talking about today? Critical dating theory. So how I would quickly summarize that is critical dating theory is the societal, cultural, and other factors that influence us, the culture we're in, and how those things recently have made dating an atmosphere that people generally tend not to enjoy. If you talk to any young lad or young lass on the street in terms of where do they think dating's at right now, assuming they're a single person trying to figure it out, you probably will get a generally negative review, or at least their friends or whoever. How I would describe dating is that it's the Wild West meets Vietnam. Similar to the Wild West, there are no rules, and like Vietnam, all of us are hoping we can catch a chopper to save us out of these rice fields. So, with that, we are going to examine what are these things in society that make dating so difficult and unpleasant for those involved, and then me attempting to save the world here will provide solutions for you all. So this will be a difficult experience, but then it'll be a happy experience once we have saved the world together, because you're going to share this with your friends, your family, your mother, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, and we together are going to change the world. Be the change you want to see in the world, and share this YouTube video. All right. I do want to say in advance, this is a topic that I am passionate about, and I do genuinely believe I'm correct on this. Some of that passion may come out in this video. I can be an intense person, and if it does come out and it's slightly offensive, to a certain extent I do apologize for the delivery, but to another extent I don't apologize for the general truth about the things that I'm about to say. I hope that makes sense. But without further ado, we're going to get going. So, first thing that I'm going to need to kind of explain, and is going to be critical for us to understand, is actually kind of a philosophical topic. We're going to be focusing on the social imaginary and expressive individualism. Now I'm going to try and squeeze this in here. Individualism. Now, these two topics. So, the way you can think about the social imaginary is it's like the unspoken cultural rules and expectations that we all have. So, like for work, it can be like, oh, you work a 9 to 5, or the Detroit Lions are never going to win a Super Bowl, or when you graduate from high school, if you have good grades, you go to college, you get a job, and then you're happy. So these things, like, they aren't written in stone, but they are our expectations in terms of how life works. They're unwritten social contracts to a degree, you could maybe say. And more specifically, expressive individualism is more so my worldview and how I specifically view the world and what my expectations are for things. Good quote, maybe to summarize this. Someone who is an expressive individual in terms of dating, people approach dating less as finding someone to build a life with and more as finding someone who fits my personal identity. So rather than saying having this social imaginary that you should conform yourself to, expressive individualism more so focuses on I have this worldview internally and I'm going to express this out on everyone else. So hopefully those kind of make sense. We'll be coming back to those throughout this video. They're helpful for understanding like what's going on. So to give an example though of how these things are shaped and formed in dating, are our cultural paragons, people who we grew up with and are influenced by. So practical example would be Taylor Swift, and then on the opposite coin, Andrew Tate. Now, how do these people affect us? So Taylor Swift, we grew up with her. We were listening to We Are Never Getting Back Together since like 2011. So Taylor Swift is important because what has she been telling us over the years? That dating's bad, men are terrible, this whole thing sucks. And so whether it's directly or indirectly, that has an influence. Perhaps as a girl, it influences your viewpoint of men. Now conversely, Andrew Tate, on the opposite coin, and much worse, has a very degrading and terrible view of women, that all women are terrible, all women are dumb, yada, yada, yada. So these people, he then directly or indirectly affects the minds of young men, where there's some people who maybe aren't as spicy as him, but they are having an effect of men and how they view women. And so thus this is changing how we as individuals and how culturally in society we view men and women, thus creating this greater divide we see between men and women in the cultural realm. Another example of this would be the social and political divide we see in our culture. Another thing that also feeds into this is social media. Now, I feel like this one is self-explanatory to a degree. All of us are on social media following different influencers, observing different things. And what these do then is, as individuals, change our thoughts and expectations as to how our lives should be and what we should expect. Particularly in dating, this then can change our expectations in terms of what to expect in a dating relationship, what to expect in a spouse, what is normal to experience in a dating relationship, because we're all experiencing the lives of other people through these online platforms where we're only seeing the best of them. No one posts their bad side, besides David Goggins. He's the only one. But everyone else is posting their good side. And so because of that, and all of us to a certain degree are addicted to our phones, we are having our thoughts and expectations change. So that continues to feed into this social imaginary and expressive individualism. Now, this might be a little controversial, but let's talk about Disney movies. Particularly this idea of the one. So our culture has grown up with the idea of the one, that there's one specific person out there for you, and when you finally meet them, it's going to be like Aladdin and Jasmine, a whole new world, magic carpet ride, going to be singing songs and living happily ever after. That certainly does happen for some people, but for the overwhelming majority of people, it probably doesn't, or at least for a lot of people, it probably doesn't. But this then changes our expectations, and then the overall cultural expectations of what it looks like to date and what you should be looking for, particularly in someone you date. And what's interesting is that what's happening is that like the larger cultural narrative is changing, but we also have our own individual expectations. So not as only is the larger cultural expectation becoming toxic and unrealistic, we also have our own expectations built in there that probably can't be met by the overwhelming majority of people. So that's not a good thing. There's also the idea of unlimited potential. We don't really think about things like death or mortality. What is a reasonable expectation with life? We're also busy that we are constantly moving from the next thing to another. Most of us are on online platforms and we have unlimited access to things such as dating apps and that we feel like there's unlimited potential in dating. There's always something better around the corner, which, and maybe some instances when you're young, you do have large potential, but as we get older, we continue to lose that potential. And I think that we finally realize the loss of our potential far too late, and to a point where it's like, oh snap, I'm in trouble. So, going with that, we also now have, say, societal things that can affect us and make dating rough. So, one of these is the housing crisis. So, it's no mystery that housing has never been less affordable. How this plays into dating, though, is that we grew up with our parents and grandparents who had a life where you got married to Betty Boo down the lane, you worked 40 hours a week at the local factory, and then with your $10 an hour salary, you were able to buy a house, 2 cars, a boat, and whatever it might be. Or at least that's how they spin it to us. The point being is that there's a perception that we, in our generation that's currently dating, are not able to achieve the same standard of living that our parents were. So that social imaginary is like, what should we expect out of dating? And then going further, what are we currently experiencing in dating? When we don't meet those expectations, it's difficult for us to process, and it makes it so that we don't actually perhaps want to entertain dating just generally, or dating certain people. Now, whether or not the merits of the current housing crisis and whether or not our lives are worse or better off than our parents is whether or not it has merit. That's a debate for a different day, but you can't deny that that's playing a cultural expectation and influence in terms of what people are thinking and perceiving in what they have. People feel a lot of despair in that area, and so that makes it that they might not want to date. Now, next we have the current health crisis. We are like one of the most unhealthy countries on the planet, and the way that influences dating is people want to date people who are healthy. People want to date people they find attractive, that they find fun, that they're going to be able to go out and do activities with, that they feel like they can have future children with. And when we have a nation that has disease epidemics, obesity epidemics, there's a real problem with that, where it's like, oh shoot, there's not many people out there who maybe meet my expectations, whether that be there or there, as to what should a healthy partner look like. So we live in a world where fast food, soda pop, and various other unhealthy habits are pushed on us, whether that be cigarettes, alcohol, gambling also is an unhealthy habit. A lot of these are pushed on us and financially are profitable for a large margin, and they have a negative effect on us, and thus also ruin the dating culture. So, this one isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does have an effect on dating. So, we have career and financial independence. So it used to be that, like in the 1800s, you had to get married because financially you needed each other. And that's no longer the case. In a lot of ways, for better, women have entered into the workforce and have been able to build financial independence so that way they are not fully dependent on someone, that being a man in marriage. In some ways, that can be good in the sense that young ladies aren't having to enter into toxic relationships with bad men. But on the other hand, it also makes this idea of maybe unlimited potential. I wrote potentially, not potentially. Unlimited potential in the sense of, oh, I have time, there could be better options down the road. So, yeah, sometimes it shouldn't be the main driving force, but maybe a little bit of need can be a good thing in terms of dating. And the idea of like, this person might fulfill certain life needs. Just the thought. All right, next we have no such thing as monoculture. No monoculture. Now, this goes into the idea that we're all expressive individuals. Everyone has their own viewpoints on life, their own things that they like to watch and consume. It used to be that we would all listen to the same music. We'd watch the same TV shows. We'd all watch Lost, Survivor, and The Office. We'd watch the new Marvel movie when it came out. We'd watch the new Disney movie when it came out. We would go to these events together and then we could talk about those things amongst other things. We don't have that anymore as a society. As things like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all those have taken over, those become our main forms of consumption and our main forms of culture. And there's such a wide plethora of media on those platforms that it's nearly impossible to find someone who has the exact same interests as you. So that makes dating difficult because it's like, all right, you sit down at a table, you're with Betty Boo now, and it's like, what do we talk about? She's interested in crocheting mittens, and you watch Pokemon Nuzlocke on YouTube. Tough to make conversation about those things. So, point being though is that like we, as individuals, are expecting someone to meet our cultural expectations of, like, am I interested in conversation? Like, ask yourself that question. Am I partaking in things that are interesting to talk about? Sometimes it's good just to read something or consume something, not because you're fully interested in it, but then you can talk to other people about it. Imagine that. Like, many of you watching this video know that I've read and watched several Jane Austen books and movies. Now, I do generally enjoy those, and I really like Sense and Sensibility, one of my favorites. But a lot of that is it does give me common interest to talk with girls about, generally. And that's not a bad thing, you know? But yeah, so then no such thing as monoculture. Yeah, I don't really know how to approach this one. There's a book that we're going to get into later. It's called Cheap. S-E-X, Cheap Sex. So the idea behind this book is that, and there's data to back this, is that there's been 3 technological revolutions recently that have particularly affected young men and have led to their decline. That being online dating, contraceptives, and bad stuff on the internet you shouldn't look up. So those things provide men with this idea of cheap sex, which is that it used to be if men wanted to partake in that, they would have to do the noble and virtuous thing. Get a job, get a home, develop some level of character, and then you could then date, meet Betty Boo, and then you guys could live happily ever after. Now, men no longer have to do that in order to, say, fulfill that satisfaction, and as a result, they don't have to, say, work as hard. And this goes into what we see in the decline of men. Now, ladies, if you're watching this video, please be honest with me if you think that the average level / value, for lack of a better term, of men has increased or decreased precipitously over the past 10 to 15 years. Now, out of those three technologies that I spoke to you about, that being online dating, contraceptives, bad stuff you shouldn't look up on the internet, which of those two have probably hit the mainstream platform over the past 10 to 15 years? The first and the last. And I don't think it's a coincidence that with the rise of those technologies, the average man, in terms of how hard he's working and what he is capable of being, has decreased drastically. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. So with the decline of men, though, we've also had a rise of women, particularly in career, right? Like, we go back to this idea of financial independence and how that's a good thing. But this rise of women has resulted in that they're generally making more than men. They're doing better in their careers than men. And if this goes back to our social imaginary of what we expect in dating, we generally still have a level of hypergamy. Women still expect to make less than their husband or have their husband be a provider in some way. There's statistics showing that when a man loses his job or is not the financial breadwinner, there's a lot of self-consciousness that comes there in terms of medications. He has to go on antidepressants, ED medications, things like that. It's not a good time. So these two things playing in tandem in the social imaginary make dating more difficult. All right. One thing, and I thought a friend of mine had a good insight with this, is contractual friendship. Now, this is something that both guys and girls do, but like oftentimes guys and girls can start hanging out in group settings, spending a lot of time together, and say girls, they may be like, all right, I will hang out with you, and then you, the guy, may provide me something else. So like, say in a practical situation, a friend has a boat or say a jet ski, and said girl wants to ride on jet ski. Girl may be like, all right, I will hang out with man who has jet ski in order to ride it, and then give him some emotional attention that he wants from me, and thus we have a contractual agreement here. This is becoming more common, that you just see that happening, that guys and girls will hang out like that, and they'll just call it, oh, it's just friends. And ultimately that can be good in the sense of it's important for guys and girls to have friendships, but at what point is it, all right, how long can you keep doing this for? And I thought that was a good insight that a friend had. So people, in a sense, then, maybe are trying to get the benefits, perhaps, of dating without actually putting the full commitment in there. We like to keep our options open. We like to feel like we have this unlimited potential. So I don't think that's a good thing, though. Lack of critical thinking. So stuff like social media and the brain rot that we currently all have has made it so like people just don't know how to talk and critically think. We can't disagree with each other. If you disagree with someone, like, people start freaking out, and it's not good. It's not good at all. So we need to figure out how to fix that. But yeah, point being is that you can't have conversations with people anymore. And when you can't have conversations with people anymore, you can't work through issues. And when you can't work through issues, it makes it really difficult to date someone because you're going to have issues, whether you like it or not. So that ain't good. And ultimately, this gets into understanding your league. Which, this is a crude way of saying, like, who is a good match for you? Like, people have extremely unrealistic expectations in terms of what they expect in a partner. A man, per se, might be partaking in this, and thus he has very skewed views of beauty standards in women, when he may be a 4 who needs to maybe go for a couple runs, hit the gym, eat some protein, and read a book. But because he's been provided with this, he has unrealistic expectations in his expressive individual mind in terms of what his partner should look like. Conversely, women who spend a lot of time on this may have unrealistic expectation in terms of income, finances, resources that a man can provide, and how often they should be able to go to expensive dinners, travel, things of that nature. When really, that's not the commonplace, and a lot of people doing those things are just either in a lot of debt, or they'll go on trips, save them up for a while, and then post them over a prolonged period of time. Something like that. The point being is that this expectation and expectations from this create warped understandings of what is actually available to us, and thus we create these unrealistic standards. So, there you have it. This is critical dating theory. This is what makes dating so difficult nowadays. Now, we'd be remiss, though, if we didn't try and solve the problem. And folks, we're about to save the world. So how are we going to save the world? There's some very practical things that we can do. Now, some of y'all may not like this, but as the doctor, Dr. Thompson, I'm here to help you. So maybe we need to stop being expressive individuals. Instead of asking ourselves, can we find someone who meets my expectations for life that may be unrealistic? Rather, maybe with reason, we assess what expectations do I have that are unreasonable, and how can I adjust those then to perhaps meet someone who is realistic, and learn to enjoy that person, to love that person, etc. So stop being an expressive individual. That's step one. If you have your notes, you're writing this down, and then you're going to put it in your nightstand, like I said, so you can review this before bed. Second, go outside and exercise. Nothing helps the current health crisis and getting off of social media and all this stuff than sit down your phone, go outside, go for a run, go play some catch with your dog. Get a dog, but don't post about your dog on Instagram. Do things that are off your devices, and you will feel a lot better. I deleted my social media back in 2018, and I'm way happier. And I can think critically. I don't have brain rot. I'm able to make these videos and explain these things to you. You should probably delete your social media. Yeah. Anyways, what else do we have? Practical application, get off dating apps. Obviously, that creates this unlimited potential idea that we have. And it also kind of continues to feed into this online realm and this expressive individual idea of what you can have. So get off of that. Reading. I do have some books that I think have been very helpful for me over the years. So I got them right here. This first one, it's by a guy named Carl Trueman. This is called Strange New World. This is the easier to access version of this book. He also has a more complex version called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. He basically analyzes how we have gotten to the culture that we're in, particularly he looks at the sexual revolution, which is related to dating. And he kind of will help you understand these ideas of the social imaginary and expressive individualism. Because these ideas just aren't specific to dating. They're specific to all areas of life. And this book will help you understand more so this concept, and then can help you maybe understand yourself and become more self-aware in how you might be doing this. Next book is this one, which is where I got this idea right here. So this dives into the three technologies I talked about and how they're having a negative effect on men in particular, and a negative effect on dating men. This guy is Catholic, but yeah, when someone's right, they're right. And this guy is right. Speaking of Catholics, we also have this one, Our Bodies Tell God's Story. This very much gets into the divine plan for love, sex, and gender. So instead of having an improper expressive individual mentality, or perhaps an improper social imaginary, maybe if we found truth rooted in Scripture in terms of what is the purpose of our identities in God and what is our purpose in dating and all that, things might get a little better. This book was very influential for me, though, in terms of just dating and understanding the gospel in general. So, yeah, I would recommend it. It will probably be life-changing for you. I'm actually doing a book study with some guys on this soon because it is a great book. So, those are some book recommendations, some reading that you can do. Now, last but not least, the realization that men and women, we do in fact need each other, despite how people like Andrew Tate and Taylor Swift might divide us, despite the fact that we are more independent than ever, despite the fact that men have unrealistic expectations from that, and women have unrealistic expectations from that. We may be not able to think critically, we may not understand ourselves, we have lack of social awareness. We still need each other. Now, this is another book I've been reading recently that's very good. And I found this quote, particularly on love and freedom, that I will leave you with. Now, this person is talking on how a individual mindset of freedom and seeing that in terms of love is not good, but rather we should look at more sense, duty, and the people that we have in our lives. So, to love, by contrast, is to renounce the freedom of being an island, of keeping one's options open. But love's open secret, as all true lovers know, is that there is a greater, richer freedom in the love relationship that could never be experienced in the serial encounters of non-commitment. By comparison with the love that binds Christ to give himself for us and compel us to follow and obey him, freedom from, that being the freedom from having to commit, is a shallow, illusionary liberty, the pie in the sky of, quote, what might be, quote, that renounces the meat on the plate of the what is. So, there you have it. Yeah, your current friends, your current relationships who are in your life, that might just be what you need to focus on and commit to rather than focusing this idea of unlimited potential. So, yeah, that's going to wrap this one up. I do think this was the magnum opus, and we will save the world if people can actually get this into their noggins. But yeah, if you like this video, leave a like, leave a comment in terms of what your thoughts are on this, and any other things you think might be playing a factor. Subscribe if you aren't, and I might post another interesting video at some point in the future. I'm kind of out of ideas after this, though. I've been building up to this, so yeah, I know this is going to be a long one, so thanks if you watched till the end. Toodles.